Urban development and digitization is one of the most integral parts of Professor Babagana Zulum's 10-pact agenda. Issues pertaining to land administration, certificates of occupancy and housing and other environmental matters has continued to take center stage. Welcome to Borno Restoration. I'm Jesse Tafida. But first, let's bring you Borno today. In Borno State, agriculture contributes up to 65% of the state's gross domestic product. With about 56,000 farmers internally displaced, who will have cultivated almost 95,000 metric tons of crops yearly, the state has lost over 500,000 metric tons of food since 2015. But the federal government is now launching a distribution of agricultural inputs to 7,386 farmers affected by the 2020 flood in Borno State. This is in fulfillment of federal government's recovery intervention to the farmers and ensure food sufficiency in the country.
A total of 7,386 farmers in 11 local government areas have been verified in Borno State and are slated to benefit from this agricultural input intervention. What we are witnessing today is therefore fulfillment of the federal government's commitment to give a lasting recovery intervention to the farmers and to ensure the completion of the recovery cycle in line with the global best practices.
The state government, on its part, appreciates the intervention as it will greatly help in restoring the livelihood of victims of insurgency.
The major reasons of the insurgency are the increasing infrastructural deficit in the northeast sub-region, poverty and climate vulnerabilities. And therefore, today's intervention will go a long way in alleviating the sufferings of our people and in addressing some of our shortcomings.
Beneficiaries promise to make better use of the input to improve their means of livelihood. He says, I am a rice farmer and I've been farming for about 12 years now. My farm has been greatly affected by flood, but this intervention will no doubt help assist us to engage in dry season farming. This is the second time the state is receiving such intervention by the federal government towards mitigating the looming food crisis in the state. The convicts are mostly students of the University of Maiduguri, Remote Polytechnic and security personnel. They were arrested at Bagani Hotel in Maiduguri on the 21st of September 2019 while having an initiation meeting where each of the convicts cut off parts of their fingers for a blood covenant. Justice Umar Fada, who submitted the evidence before the court, shows that the defendants are guilty of the two-count charge of conspiracy and cultism leveled against them. The convicts were charged under Section 97B of the Penal Code, which the judge explained means they were charged for initiating people into the Black Axe cult. Counsel to the defendant, Ahmed Haman, made a plea to the court, noting that since the convict exhibit remorse, the court should temper justice with mercy. In his response, the Attorney General of the state, Kakashehu Lawan, notes that the verdict passed by Justice Umar Fadau will serve as deterrent to others.
It's a very commendable effort on both the side of the prosecution as well as the judiciary. Borno is facing various security challenges. Allowing cultism to thrive will actually amount to dereliction of duty on our part.
The state attorney affirms that government will not leave any stone unturned to ensure law and order is maintained in the state. Borno State government in recent times has been intensifying efforts to reduce housing deficit in the state through provision of affordable housing. Policies are equally being formulated to empower estate developers and other related matters pertaining to land administration. Let's take this report. If there is one state in northeast Nigeria that has recovered so fast from the devastation of Boko Haram insurgency, that state is Borno, the epicenter of the protracted violence that has destroyed economic activities and lives. The rapid infrastructure and human capacity development in Borno State in recent times came like a huge surprise to many who find it difficult to believe that the state used to be the flashpoint of Boko Haram in the country. Under the leadership of Professor Babagana Zulum, development in Borno has risen to an all-time high as his restoration mission has been all-encompassing. From construction of mega schools and affordable healthcare centers across the state to reconstruction, rehabilitation, and resettlement of internally displaced persons, IDPs, every sector of the economy bears the stamp of Governor Zulum's forward-thinking leadership through his 10-packed agenda. As one of the promising economies in northern Nigeria, one area that has remained critical to development in Borno State is land administration, urban planning, and development. Through the Borno State Geographic Information Service, BOGIS, issues surrounding land, from allocation to management and down to taxes, are now better managed. All these were tall order in the past, but now being tackled technologically.
Because we already have these digital files.
Land records are now digitalized, with taxes duly paid and occupancy rights no longer violated or not renewed. Also, allocations which used to be arbitrarily carried out has ceased. There is now zero tolerance for buildings that encroach public utilities like roads and drainage system, as well as those built recklessly without approval. Before the administration of Professor Zulum, 75% of land properties in Maiduguri metropolis lacked legal titles. Many have just agreements from village or district heads of various communities, which hindered many businessmen from accessing loans from banks and other financial institutions. Borno State is now turning a new leaf with the advent of technologically empowered BOGIS. Professor Babagana Zulum signed and issued more than 1,000 certificates of occupancy in 1 year. This is a positive development when compared to the 1,722 certificates that were issued between 1999 and 2019. This is about 60% of all the certificates of occupancy issued in 20 years.
This is the computer ICT unit where we digitalize archived files. We digitalize archived files by scanning these files and having them in our repository. So any files that has been scanned, as you can see some of the files we have here, see the owner and every other metadata on the file. So, and here is the server room. In the server room here, we have our network. We have our network with the fiber optic connection to the Airtel mast. And here is the server that is housing the software that is being used by all the staffs outside there. We have this A0 scanner. It scans a wide map bigger than this. So we are able to transform the old maps that we have into a digital map. So this scanner we have here, it's the only scanner you can find here in the entire Northeast. Then we have this printer that also prints on A0 paper. So it's also one of the scanners you can find in the entire Northeast. So these other features, like this other system here, we use them for our certificates and other programs too that we use.
Once manually done, the cumbersome process has been made seamless and fast with the use of technology, sophisticated drones, and other high-resolution survey equipment by Borges. Before now, only 10 plots of land can be surveyed in a month, but the number has risen astronomically as 1,000 can be done within a month.
Some of these files are old files, so we don't need to be handling them again because we've digitalized them. So if you come in, we just search through the file name of the file. That's the file number. We search. Once you search, we can be able to see the content completely because it has been scanned inside. So if there's any need for us to update anything on it, maybe you perform any transaction or anything, the new update that has been done to it, we also rescan them and add to what we have already. We just add. So once we add, it has been updated. So everything is digitized to the extent whereby we keep record and we update our records. So as any time you come in to search, instead of following the long process of searching, you get it at once.
Apart from the gains recorded by Borges in urban planning and development, the agency is also central to the internal revenue generation drive in the state, with more than 350 million naira generated in the first quarter of 2021. Borges is expected to generate about 1.5 billion naira to the state government purse.
You know, the Constitution allows us to inspect any property during the daytime. We have been giving notices to all property owners within the state to come and update their records, pay their outstanding ground rents, ensure that they conform to all the regulations that are surrounding their ownerships. Government needs the revenue, government needs to update its record, government needs to have a very vibrant database of all the properties in Borno State.
Borno, a state once ridden by decade-long conflict, has been swimming against the tide and fast becoming the envy of northeast Nigeria and a model for economic prosperity in the Sahel region. Borno Geographic Information Service, it's one agency that has been playing a vital role in the urbanization policy of Professor Babagana Zulum. Join me as I engage the Executive Secretary of the agency, Adam Bababe, on some of the activities of the agency since its establishment.
Come to Borno Restoration. As the Executive Secretary of the Borno Geographic Information Service, can you talk us through your activities in the last 2 years of Governor Zulum's administration?
Our first point of call when we came on board was to ensure that we migrate all the legacy data, all the legacy files into the electronic database. We developed what we call the digital land registry, and then we started migrating all the files into the electronic database. So far so good. We are almost 70 to 80% in this movement. You can attest that 70 in any exam is an A. So we have successfully commenced that and then progressed positively. Also, in the management and administration of these lands, it had been a normal thing just to buy a portion of land or get a portion of land inherited by some individuals, and they just bag it at home, put it in their safes, and stay with such documents. There is no nexus between the original allotee and the current title holder. So in our records, Mr. A has this land. Till this moment, Mr. A is still holding on to that land. Wherever you go to, that document is still being held by these individuals. Well, in real sense, it has changed hands, sometimes 3 to 4 hands, in some cases even 5 hands, but it has not been documented. So, as far as the law is concerned, the original allotee is still the current title holder. So we have tried to enlighten the people, we have tried to tell the people to come forward to ensure that these documents are updated. These things, these deeds of assignments that they need to do, they need to come and perfect them. They need to come and perfect their documents. Then one segment of this administration is the payment of ground rents. People had not been paying ground rents for years. It is only when somebody wants to get a facility from the bank, or maybe government wants to take that place for overriding public interest and pay compensation, then these ground rents are deducted. But outside of that, payments of these ground rents had not been in existence before the coming of this agency. So we ensured that it is the obligatory responsibility of individuals to pay these ground rents. And so far so good, they are paying these ground rents. Then there's also the area of development control. The agency has a unit known as development control, where hand in hand with the sister agencies of government like the urban planning board and the rest, where we ensure conformity to building regulations, town planning regulations, development regulations, survey regulations within the state. It had been dormant for years, but we have tried to revive it, and it's now very vibrant, very strong, that you don't even commence your building until when you now come up with your building plans approved by the relevant agencies of government, and then all these plans that have been approved have to be adhered to by all the citizenry. That is also being done. In line with that too, we have the problem of flooding across the state. It's not only in Borno State, across Nigeria and the globe at large, where floods are being experienced in recent times. Quite okay, climate change is a factor, but then we can't rule out the human factor of building along river banks, building or encroaching along waterways, which had been allowed to continue without control. Now we have tried to ensure that there are no buildings or encroachments along these river banks and waterways. With the sister agency, we have move around town to ensure that they adhere to all these things, and so far so good. We have progressed positively.
Yeah, going around the state, there are some houses, some buildings. We see your marks there. Can you talk us through why is that mark there, and what are they supposed to do to get that mark removed from their property?
You see, change is a very difficult phenomenon, as I always say. It's a very difficult phenomenon that people find it hard to adjust to their normal ways. But as it is known, just because everybody is doing it does not make it right. So also, just because nobody is doing it does not make it wrong. Now, this thing that I have told you, that people had forgotten about their responsibilities of not paying ground rents, not perfecting the documents, not updating the records of who owns what now, we came up with a policy that we segmented the state into zones and areas where people are now mandated to come and update these documents. We started out well. We issued notices. We went about the media, the conventional and the social media, to enlighten the public. We came about with billboards, posters, banners, jingles, to enlighten the populace about the need for them to update these records, the need for them to pay their duties to government, to pay these taxes that are due to government. But then people felt that it's just like the normal government noise. Then we now moved to the second phase of our implementation and enforcement, where we moved around with demand notices. We go with these demand notices to the various houses, various organizations, institutions, and what have you. But then it still fell on deaf ears. In some instances, these notices are received by security people, office guards, and the rest, and it doesn't even reach to the people in responsibility to handle this. In some cases, they are received, but because money is involved, Naira and Kobo is involved, they just ignore it. They just deny the fact that they have collected these things. And in the face of the law, first line of action is for us to serve them these notices, for us to tell them and demand from them that these are the things you need to do before we move on to the next line of action. But people continue to deny it. In some instances where I personally led such operations, somebody will just collect the demand notice and then tear it off in our presence. In the presence of journalists, they will just tear it off. People are hungry, people are facing insurgency, people are facing economic meltdown, but you are disturbing people with such. So we were pushed to go about now marking these properties so that it will be clearly seen by everybody that yes, we have made demand to these people. We have made these people to come and do their obligatory responsibility. Mind you, the Land Use Act was explicitly clear. Our allocation letters are clear that without demand, you should pay the beginning of every year your ground rent. You should construct your building, your allocated plots within X number of years. We have explicitly given it as conditions of allocation.
So now moving further, what's the future of Borges in line with this administration for the good people of Borno State?
A very fantastic question. We are now coming up with estates that will be developed by estate developers who have interest in such. It's going to be a PPP where government will have a quota to contribute, the private individuals and organizations will have a quota to contribute because we don't have the luxury of funds. So we'll develop these smart cities. I call them smart cities because we will incorporate IT in them. We will have state-of-the-art security facilities because of the insurgency we are facing, smart energy in such places, smart environment in those estates, that people will now have a sense of belonging that is obtained like any other place in the world. Because without going smart, without going electronic, we will not enjoy what we have as natural resources. Borno has landmass of about 72,000 or whatever square meters. So you see, it's large. We have to tap into these resources. We have to make people derive the maximum benefit of such vast resources. We are more than any other state in the Federation in terms of landmass. We have to tap into that.
Thank you very much, Executive Secretary, Borno Geographic Information Service, Adam Bababe. Thanks for your time on Borno Restoration.
And that's our package on this edition of Borno Restoration. Thanks for watching. I'm Jessie Tafida. See you next time. Bye-bye.